Nobody else? You too? All right. So I'm Instructor Edwards from the FDNY CPR Mobile Unit. Instructor Robos from the FDNY CPR Mobile Unit. So we go around throughout the city just to educate the New Yorkers on how to do compressions only. In other words, is that we want to make sure that the public is comfortable and knowing that they can help somebody out. You don't have to be certified in order to help someone out. So this is what we go around. We don't do certification. It's just more awareness to make people more comfortable in doing compressions only. All right. So CPR. Anybody who's certified in CPR? Oh, right there. Okay. So under the American Heart Association, for those that are certified, what y'all do is still the same thing. This is for people that's not certified in CPR. So that's why it's compressions only. When you're only doing compressions, you're not checking the pulse, and you're not giving the blood. There's still oxygen that's still in the blood, and what we want to do is circulate that blood to the vital organs. Because brain cells starts to die within 4 to 6 minutes. All right, but we want to circulate that. But the problem is that the public, since they're not educated, they'll call 911, and the next thing you know, they'll say, all right, everybody back up, the emergency crew is coming. And meanwhile, it's the person laying there, and critical seconds, minute goes into minutes, are just taken away. So now we just want to make the public more aware that you can do something to help that person, and how to recognize. Now, there's a few things I just want to go over, scene safety. I'm going to show you how to recognize if somebody's in cardiac arrest and the information that you get to 911. And I'm going to show you a quick demonstration on how to use the automated external defibrillator. All right? So when it comes to scene safety, let's just say for a person that collapsed, right? I'm just going to keep it as simple as possible. Person that collapsed, what you want to do is make sure before you even go and touch the person, you want to make sure that the scene is safe for you. It could be a wire next to this person. If it happens to go down, it could be glass near that person. All right? So you want to just make sure that it's safe for you before you even touch. All right? Now, if this person had collapsed, one of the next things that you want to do is you want to yell out at the person. Sir, ma'am, are you okay? Are you all right? Looking at the person, see if you see some sort of movement, some sort of signs of, if you see any movement, they're waking up. You don't see that? The next thing you're going to do is kneel down, take both of your hands, tap your shoulders, both sides of your shoulders. Hey, you okay? You all right? See if you get a response. You didn't get no response at this moment. What you think is the next thing you do? This is a true emergency. What you think is the next thing? You go. And if there's people there, you know what you can do? You're in a hot pink shirt, call 911 and see if you can get a defibrillator. But look at my hand, look at my arm, look at my finger. I'm pointing, correct? I'm not yelling out, somebody call 911. When you're hysterical, that's the common thing to say. Somebody. But you know what? Guess what? A lot of people out here is filming, right? So everybody's going to be shaking their head. So people film it to be catching the latest news and put it on social media. So meanwhile, the person looking to the right, looking to the left, to see who's going to call 911 because they're busy filming. But when you point to an individual to get the attention, now you snap them out of it. So now they're like, oh, okay. And if there's multiple people around, I can assign one person to call 911. I can assign the other person to see if they can go and get the defibrillator, find and see if they can get an automated external defibrillator. The person that's calling 911, just make sure you ask them to put the phone on speaker so that you can hear and also communicate with the EMS operator. The 911 operator is going to pass it on to the EMS operator so that you can communicate, because we're going to be the ones to help you step by step. If you happen to forget a couple of things, we're going to guide you every step of the way. Once you do that, the next thing to do, because when you call 911, you tell them what's going on, what's the next question the EMS operator is going to say? Are they breathing? Right? Is the person breathing? This is how you check. You expose them from the waist up. And what you're looking at is you're seeing if the chest is going up and down. What you say?
Facing upward and
There
down.
you go. That's what you're looking for. Up and down. See, I broke it down in those steps. Because again, when we go and teach people in New York City, we just don't want people to just feel like if somebody collapsed, they could just go and start doing compression because the person is not waking up. You want to check to see if they're breathing. And if they're not breathing, this is what you're going to do. So this person is not breathing. I want everybody to do this. We're going to do this technique. Oh, y'all rubbing your hand. Okay, y'all really following me. I was warming up. Get my hands warmed up. That's all. All right. I want you to put your hand out. Put your hand out like you say stop. So it's not your fingers. It's not your palm. It's the heel of your hand. The heel. Okay, what you're going to do is place it right here in the center of your chest. It's not going to be at your abdomen. It's definitely not going to be up here. Right here in the center. I want you to put your hand back out. Take your other hand. Place it on top. Interlock your fingers. Good. Make sure your elbows is locked. You're going to be using your upper body strength. So, you relax your hand. It would be here in the center. Okay? So this is what it would look like. I don't know if y'all can see it in the back. I'll try to move here. But here in the center, other hand on top, you want to make sure your chest is over the person's chest. And make sure your elbows lock, back straight. And you start doing your compressions. At least 2 inches down at a rate of 100 to 120. That's 2 compressions per second. You can sing a song to keep that rhythm. What do you think the song is?
Stay alive, stay alive.
Staying alive, staying alive. Now you're going to continue to do that, right? The only time that you will stop. Because of course, if you by yourself, you get exhausted. But somebody really want to switch every 2 minutes, right? But you'll continue to do that compression. The only time you'll stop if you get exhausted, you take the 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds because you by yourself, nobody around, get your energy back. But if you have chest pain, if you have asthma, and you can't continue, stop. As long as you call 911, you did the best you can in helping the best you can at that moment. The second time you'll stop with the emergency crew, arrive like us. We come, the EMTs, the paramedics, firefighters, PD. We come, or somebody else is certified to CPR. The third time you stop, as you do a compressions, you hear or you see some sort of signs of life. What would be seeing some sort of signs of life? Gasping, movement, right. So now you stop, because you might be compressing, you might hear some moaning. You stop, you look, you notice that the person is breathing. This is another technique you can do. Okay, if the person is breathing, one hand on the waist, the other hand on the shoulder, you're going to roll them to their side. This is what we call the recovery position. Let the fluid strain out, tongue laying to the side, and they're able to breathe, but you have to keep your eyes on the chest. If they stop breathing, you're going to lie them flat. Now let me tell you about this recovery position. Like when I'm not in uniform, like just wearing regular clothes and I'm hanging out with family, if somebody pass out and they become unresponsive, they're not waking up, if they're breathing, this is the position that I put them in. The recovery position until the emergency crew arrives. So when I have a seizure, they're not getting up. Diabetic emergency, if they're not waking up, this is the position. So this is another technique that you can do in helping somebody. Of course, you got to first call 911. Okay? So if they stop breathing, you're going to do compression. You're going to go back to do compressions. So now, I'm just going to show you, because you said you want to volunteer. Who else wants to volunteer? She wants to volunteer. Okay, we're going to get some. So this is what you're going to do. The first thing I'm going to have you do is somebody collapses, just say on the street or whatever. And the first thing you want to do is make sure the scene is safe. So you're looking around. Make sure nothing is going to bring harm to you. The next thing I want you to do is, while standing here, get up. Because don't you do that? Like, you're not going to just go and touch someone. You woke up this little, hey, you okay? You all right? Don't you do that, right? It's like if you have, listen, it's like when you're home and you have your husband, your wife, your kid, you open the door, you coming in the house, and what you doing? You peek in the room. You're like, hey, honey, I'm home. Open in the room if they're sleeping. And you say, you call them out, right? To see if you see some sort of movement, right? Move, right? It's the same thing. You go call out to this, hey, sir, ma'am, you okay? You all right? Looking at them. You don't see any movement? Kneel down, take both your hands, tap your shoulder. Hey, are you okay? Are you all right? Now how to get a response to some emergency. You're in an army fatigue jacket. Call 911 to see if you get a defibrillator. After that, expose the person from the waist up, checking to see if this person's breathing. It's not breathing, candidate for me to do compression zone. Okay? So that's what I'm going to want you to do. So we're going to practice it right now. Who's the next one? So you're going to stand in. You're going to stand in.
Oh, am I starting?
No, not yet. I'm going to let you know when to start. All right? Now, after they go, who's next? Y'all two? All right, it's all right. They're going to demonstrate, but as long as you saw it. Okay. All right. So, person collapse. The first thing that you're going to do is make sure that the scene is what? Safe. Good. Y'all can all say it along because I want to make sure that y'all have it also, okay? The next thing that's going to be done, you're going to call out, say, sir, ma'am, are you okay? Are you all right? Don't be shy now, come on.
Are you okay?
All right. You didn't see any response from that. Kneel down onto the mat, your knees onto the mat, take both your hands and tap the shoulders, wake them up. Both sides of the shoulders, wake them up. Hey, you okay? You all right?
Oh, hey, man.
At this point, what you going to do? Point to somebody, call them out by the color what they're wearing. Say, call 911 and get them. Okay.
But I didn't check to see if they were breathing.
We will get
She's the best.
right. Because you know, okay, you see how she said, I need to check this in, but you know what? They didn't wake up. So we didn't even get to that part. We just want to make sure if they didn't wake up, let's get the 911 because that's not normal for them to be laying. So you want to call 911 first and get that going. So after since somebody called 911, now it's the next thing to check. There you go. Great stuff. And we're going to see if they're
And it's consent only.
and you're looking to see if they're breathing.
Yes.
They're not breathing. Feel in the hand in the center of the chest, other hand on top. Lock your elbows. Your chest should be over the person's chest. Lean forward. Right? Okay. So here we go. Y'all ready? Y'all gonna follow our tempo. And everybody, y'all can clap along. We're gonna do it, so they can stay in tempo. If y'all want to sing, say it aloud, you can do that. All right? We'll encourage them. Now, listen to me. While you're doing compressions, and understand this, most cardiac arrests, the number one place is at home. So this could be your family. Could be a friend. And you know what? You're going to be nervous. You're going to be hysterical. Let me give y'all some advice. If that happens to you, what I want you to do is talk to yourself. Calm yourself down. And concentrate on just what you're doing. So while you're doing the compressions, this person is in cardiac arrest. I want you to also, while you're doing the compressions, you have to breathe. Do not hold your breath. Okay? Right. Do not hold your breath. And you will keep talking to yourself. You can pray, whatever is going to make you feel calm. But I want you to concentrate. I want you to give it everything that you have. We on our way. That's why it's important for you to call 911 first when there's an emergency. Call us. And then we can start the process and see what's going on. So you ready? All right, and keep in mind, breathe. So, ready? 1, 2, 3, let's go. 1, 2, And guess what? You hear some movement. So you saw some movement.
All right.
Now, say it. There you go. Say it again. There you go. Same side. There you go. And so everybody, I want y'all to, what position is this again? Don't say it.
Recovery position.
One more time.
Recovery position.
One more time.
Recovery
That's the
position.
position you put it. And if they stop breathing, what are you going to do? Put them right there. And then you go back. There you go. All right. I just wanted to go back to, when you call 911, right, you want to try to give detailed information, okay? So, I'm just saying, for example, if I collapse here, and you call 911, what would you tell them? They ask you where the location at, and where's the patient, where's the person at.
Very stressful. It's trying to figure out the address, and you call 911 trying to figure out the address. That is the most stressful activity.
And that's why you always have to be where you're surrounded, right? Because you never know. What if you're family? So you always say, but what address? Anybody, what address is it? What's that?
530 West 166.
Okay. And where would they come from? The emergency crew? We coming through, where we go?
I have television down
So when I walk through the door, where am I going?
elevators, second floor.
To the second floor. Now the security might not be there. You know why I say that?
Oh, yeah.
Because when I walked in, he wasn't there. It just happened, he just happened to come because he probably was about to use the bathroom, right? So it's a guarantee that if it was this building, he wasn't there. So I will come in and go to the elevator and go to the second floor, and of course I'm coming in and as soon as the doors open up, I'm in. So you want to give detailed information where you're at, the location, address, what floor, you're in the top, if it's a house, attic, basement, you're in the bathroom. Detailed information is very important. In the part, just give detailed information. Now, real quick, I just want to go over this. Just the automated external defibrillator, this is the trainer. There's many defibrillators that's out there, many types of different models. What I'm going to show you, you'll be able to use any model. It's easy to use and safe. Okay, but what I am going to tell you is, do I have one in this building?
It should be by the security guard.
Okay, that's good to know. So, like you said, it should be by the security guard. So, what I'm going to tell you is that what I'm about to show you, you're able to use any automated external defibrillator. All right? So, some when you open it up, they may turn on automatic, and if not, what you want to do is press the button. But I'm going to talk about this soon. But you may have 2 pads in the case, and you may have a shaving kit, to shave the hair so the pads can stick to the skin. All right? Because men and females, they do have hair in chest. When you open up the pad, it's self-explanatory. When you look at the pads, all you have to do is look at the picture, where to place it at the chest. All right? This is the automated external defibrillator. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. The first thing you want to do is turn it on. The second thing you want to do, what makes it so easy, is listen to what the prompts tell you to do. Follow directions of what the machine is telling you to do. The third is very important. When it prompts you to press the button to give a shot, have to be careful before you press this button. You want to make sure that no one's not touching. You're not touching and no one's not touching. That means you have to look from head to toe before you press it. Do not get tunnel vision and start working the machine because somebody's touching, or you might be helping somebody on the street and then touching, praying over the person, or say, come on, wake up and touch it, but just so focused on this. Do not press this button unless everyone's clear. You have to look before you press. Look around on that body before you press, and what you're going to say before you press this button, when it prompts you to, you're going to say, clear. You say, clear, back up, clear, don't touch. As you're looking, on the count of 3, I want everybody to say clear. 1, 2, 3.
Clear.
1, 2, 3.
Clear.
Good. I'm going to demonstrate it to you. You got some nice right in here. Oh. All right, so you send somebody to get the automated sort of the filler, they're bringing it to you. Now, being that I'm showing y'all how to use it, you can take it from them, you can ask the person, can they do compressions, put the heel of their hand in the center of the chest. If they chose not to because they're nervous or they're scared, it's fine. Do not try to make them feel bad. Don't argue with them. You can still operate this and help this person, okay? But if they chose to help you, they want to help you, have them do the compressions, but you're going to work around it. You're not going to have them stop doing compressions to put the pads on. Let them continue to do the compression and you work around them, okay? So, doing compression, somebody brought it to you. What's the first thing I'm going to do? What's the second thing I'm going to do? Listen to the prompts. Okay.
Plug in pads connector next to flashing light.
I might be nervous opening this up, right? Nervous looking, because it's my first time maybe doing this, right? Now, why am I saying I'm nervous? You know why? Because guess what? The machine is going to repeat itself. It's not going to move on to the next step. Sometimes when you turn the machine on, your ears just picking up that it's talking, and you're like, oh, I got to, and you're trying to race. It's going to repeat itself. Calm down. It's not going to move on to the next step unless you complete the step. We got that? So you're looking.
Insert connector firmly.
See how it's still repeating itself? Okay. Then you place the cell phone. Follow the picture.
Would you have shaved them already before placing those on?
Well, right, yeah, if it was a light, yeah, I could shave. You see where it says, it shows, I'm not seeing, but you see?
Apply pads. Insert connector firmly. Analyzing hardware. Do not touch the
What it's telling you?
Do not touch me.
All right. Follow what the machine tells you.
Shock advised. Charging. Stay clear of patient.
Okay. Stay clear. I'm clear. I'm looking around. Remember, look before you press. Look before you press. No one's not touching. I'm going to yell out. 1, 2, 3. Clear. Clear. Back up. Don't touch. But press the button and give a shot.
Shock delivered.
Sometimes you see the body just jump.
Begin CPR.
And start doing my compressions. Now, you're going to keep the machine on, the pads on. Do not turn off the machine. Now, this is the machine. You're going to follow it to the T. This is your guide. All right? So, now, let's just say that somebody brought you the machine and it's not coming on, right? You press the button. Don't sit there to fumble with it to try to figure out how to work it. Just put it to the side and continue doing your compressions. Okay? Again, until we come. Brain cells to die 4 to 6 minutes. You want to circulate that blood. Okay? If it's, let's say you helping somebody on the beach, a lifeguard. You went out there, probably was close his last shift, the time, he was already in the sun, now he was helping somebody, helping them out of water, he's very exhausted. And he said, listen, I know CPR. He gives you this machine. If before you put the pads on, just make sure you dry the chest area. Not the whole body. Just the chest, where you're going to place the pads at. There was a metal plate that's on the street, and they was on here. If you can't get anybody to move them off of it, you can always, grab the machine and step forward, where you stretch, and you can operate it that way. All right? And it's very common for ribs to be broken. And this is what gets a lot of people nervous, especially in New York City, and helping people. Because, let's just say, you was helping somebody and the person said, it's because of you, my family didn't survive because you broke their ribs, internal injury. See, there you go. So the question is, can they sue her?
No.
They can sue, but she's protected under the Good Samaritan law. As long as you stay within the scope of practice of what you've been taught. In other words, you're not adding anything extra that you learned off of television. I'm going to cut a hole here so the person can circulate, they can breathe better. Then you get sued. You have to stay within the scope of what you've been taught. All right? Any questions? But thank you. Good job.
Let's give a round of applause to the FDNY for giving us that amazing training. Alright, so we're finally getting started. Thank you so much for showing up and coming on down. Our presentation today is Uptown Autism Family and Safety. So part of the presentation was teaching us how to give CPR compressions to our family members in case anything of like an emergency were to happen. Today we're celebrating autism. It's Autism Awareness Month. So we are trying to create community and bring inclusion to the heights because as we know, as Latinos, we don't really discuss disabilities out in the open. So we want to take away the stigmas and break down those barriers so that our families feel more welcome in the community.
So also, as an autism mom and advocate, it is very important to do events like this, especially to provide an outlet. Because nowadays everybody is either on their phone, and you can create a sense of community, online, but it's also sometimes good to have face-to-face. And especially with the episode, it happened about 2 months, a month ago?
No, a month ago.
A month ago. So the incident on 181st Street on the A train line, her and I actually did a live together, and we went for about an hour. And we talked about it.
We did.
But it was a very impactful event that occurred, because to be honest with you, especially as an autism mom, what are you going to do? You're going to make a t-shirt to say, my child is autistic, do not harm, or do not mock, or, do not engage. And it's sad that after the situation did happen to the young man, that it was kind of like a dismissive attitude. So that prompted us to create this panel discussion for today. So, FDNY, thank you so much for being here. And also, we also going to do this presentation first, and we're going to cover for Spectrum Warriors. And Spectrum Warriors actually focuses on teaching NYPD how to deal with people on the spectrum, especially during times of distress. Because also, aside from your fellow man, people on the spectrum occasionally do not respond well to like distress situations, because either they want to run away. If you do try to engage, I'm sure you've seen cases like, I recall there was a gentleman who was, he had a hybrid combination, and the police were screaming at him. And of course, he started stimming, he put his hand on his ears, and the police were screaming at him. And he's so overwhelmed that he didn't know how to react. So I think it's important that NYPD and everybody, involved should, have a level of awareness that's important. So, yeah.
I wanted to add to that there was another situation where an adult man with autism was with his social worker actually, and if it wasn't because the social worker, if it wasn't because the social worker stepped in and grabbed him and bodily put him on the floor, he would have been in harm's way. So the reason why we want the NYPD to be trained to work with our kids is because they need to know the signs of what a person on the spectrum does, how they respond, and what it looks like. Because the thing is, unless you're working with people that are on the spectrum, it's hard to know. We don't really know. So there's not an autism look. So we want to be able to point out. We want to be able to point out what are the signs that you can look out for somebody that has autism, or that is neurodiverse.
Exactly. We're going to do the condensed version because the list is very lengthy. So we're going to start with the simple, for example, they seem to ignore people, and making eye contact is difficult for them. So when you encounter someone on the spectrum, it's hard for them to make eye contact with you. And you can't demand, look at me in the eye, because then they feel like it's an intimidation tactic.
Mm-hmm.
For example, with my son, when he was much younger, this lovely young man here, when he was that age, his father, to show him, I mean business. In the Latino and African American community, we tell our kids, look me in the eye, I'm serious. And I'm just like, okay, you're kind of talking in a harsh tone, so he's not going to look at you in the eye. He loves you, but he's not going to look at you in the eye. Then another thing is, he would line up his cars, which is anything was a train, an airplane, car, anything that moves. Cans. Oh man, he used to make the best towers out of habichuelas. I was like, this is great. But as soon as it's gonna, and then of course his tower would come down, he would start crying, and I'm like, you shouldn't have done the habichuela tower, aka the bean tower. They have aversions to certain foods, smells, textures, and sounds. So, for example, when the vecinos put the music on, he's like, oh, I know that song. Why are you putting it on though? Or if it's too loud, then I have to get him his noise canceling headphones, for example. Or maybe a fire truck passing by, or an ambulance might, trigger, and the child could scream. The child could scratch themselves and pull their hair and things like that.
One thing I want to know is that when they have aversions to sounds, those things can set them off. So being in a train station or a noisy area, you can see sometimes that the kids will create a hand helmet, so they'll cover their hands with their ears, or they'll do one of these. My son actually prefers a shoulder and a finger in the ear to cover their ears. So if you notice that someone in the community is, or on the train, let's say, is not giving anybody eye contact, is repeating echolalic speech, which is repeating things they hear from cartoons, or it seems like they're talking to themselves, that is another sign that you can look out for as well.
Yes. Also, attachment to unusual objects. So, for example, my son loves to walk around with a back scratcher. I'm like, that's not practical. You can scratch somebody. And then, of course, if we go to the park, I'm going to take the back scratcher. I'm like, who are you going to scratch? It's not a weapon. It's something, Or, for example, a kite that he never let me build completely. So it depends, whatever it is. and creativity. This was really important, and this happens a lot in public, and it's hard for us as parents on the spectrum to deal with. When your child laughs, becomes upset, or they cry out of the blue. And sometimes it's a memory they had from like 2 weeks before when you took something from the child. You're like, I was like Monday the 19th at 7.
Especially if they're nonverbal, it's hard to identify what is the cause
Exactly.
of the reason why they're upset or crying. So,
Exactly.
they might laugh out of the blue, and people that don't know them obviously will look at them kind of strangely. But that's another thing that you can look out for as well. And then the biggest thing that we were discussing earlier, and that I was discussing on my episode that aired this week, is the lack of awareness of danger.
Yes.
They have no idea
Yes.
that there's certain things that they can do that are dangerous to them. So, walking in front of a car, putting their head out of the window, or anything like that is super dangerous, obviously, but they don't have that awareness where they're thinking of consequences. If I do this, then this can happen to me. So it's kind of like they're just operating in the moment. They're not really having that processing where they're thinking this might happen afterwards.
Exactly.
So for kids on the spectrum, when they run away, that's called elopement.
Yes.
So in schools especially, because I'm a special education teacher, I've been teaching for about 10 years, you have to be extra vigilant that the child doesn't run out of your classroom.
Yep.
And this is why I'm always in sneakers when I'm teaching, because not on my watch. So really being aware of all exits and places that they can get into that can be of danger to them.
Even the bathroom, sometimes they could flood a toilet and not know.
Or lock themselves in the stall.
Exactly. Or sometimes they'll engage, even if they're verbal or nonverbal, it's called work avoidance, which means they'll have their parent take them to the bathroom, and if they know it's not their favorite subject, they might stay in there a little longer than necessary. Don't be afraid to, knock on the door without spooking them, though. That's what you're doing.
One thing that I can advise is that if you see that there's a person on the spectrum that is in danger, get on their level, make eye contact, and speak in very neutral tones. Don't try not to raise your voice, even if it's something that's really dangerous and you're trying to get their attention. It is more effective if you come down to their level, look at them in the eye, and speak in very soothing tones, using their names and looking at them directly.
Yeah, and also being mad and frustrated or angry does not help the situation. Because an extreme example was Ave. He was not being properly, watched. And as a parent, that's kind of the biggest fear that you have. You don't want to hear about your child on the news. You don't want to see your child actually have to, go through that. So that's always a thought in everybody's mind. Nobody wants to be on the news. Now, if you get my good side, I did my hair that day, I look cute. No, I don't want to be on the news. But on the spectrum, it's been a very difficult journey. And I think we just have to keep on pushing. We are here. We're not going anywhere. There's more of us every day as it passes. And the statistics now for autism are...
Yeah, the CDC just released last month, actually. The statistics for autism here in the United States is 1 in 33 children are diagnosed with autism.
Yes.
In 2010, when my son was diagnosed, it was 1 in 88.
Yeah.
So now it's all the way up to 1 in 33. Are more people getting autism? We don't know. However, the identification is becoming more precise, and they can identify way beforehand. There's certain things that you can look out for your child. So a lot of the warning signs that we gave. Another thing is hand flapping.
Yes.
If you notice your child hand flaps, and it doesn't have to be complete hand flapping like this. It can be kind of stimming a little bit, moving their hands, or they get really excited and they just
Yes.
like they can't contain themselves. They look very excited. So that's another thing that you can look out for in your toddler that can be a warning sign as well. And
spinning.
yes, spinning.
What else? Everything is a certain sound. The hum is always either a moving vehicle, like for my son, I sound like a train. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. Yeah, you sound like a train that I missed. So that's one. Again, you also have to see that when they try to interact with children that are typically developing, that for their level, there's no association yet. Like for my son, he'll go to the playground, and then of course, who does he rally? The 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. I'm like, you're 13.
Yes.
And I have to explain to the parents of the younger kids, I'm like, he's on the spectrum. Don't worry, he's not going to harm anybody. He just wants to play, and he wants to be the leader. And it's not because it's a dominance thing. It's just that's how they feel. Sometimes the diagnoses, it could be a year delay to, like, I think the shortest for my son, he's 6 months delay. So in processing. So every year he grows chronologically, it's always like a 6-month delay.
Mm-hmm.
So like for example, he just turned 13, it's really 12 and a half.
Yeah, when my son got diagnosed when he was 2, they told me it was about a 33% delay, which at the time was like 6 months, but like as they get older, if you calculate, it's more time than that, because developmentally, they're a certain age, but chronologically, like they look like an adult.
Yes.
But, you know, they are not processing things on that adult level. They don't have the maturity yet. So, I mean, one thing that I am gonna speak on is that, you know, we have to try not to be ableist. So, you know, speak to their age. It doesn't matter what chronological, what developmental age they are. Still treat them with respect. Still treat them as an adult, and still address them. You know, don't speak like, let's say their parent is there. Let's say I'm a therapist and I'm working with Ellis. I am not going to only speak to Eury when I want to say something to Ellis. So making sure that you're directing your communication with them specifically.
Yes, and also make sure that you're on top of your child's IDPs, your individualized education plans. Always make sure that you know, that you observe. It's super key and super important that if your child needs occupational, speech therapy, physical therapy, or counseling, you always have to be extra aware of that, because it does tend to happen.
Also, making sure that your child is actually receiving the services.
Exactly.
Because that can tend to happen in schools as well. Sometimes therapists go on vacation, or they're on maternity leave, yet they haven't gotten anybody to replace them. You have to ensure that they're receiving their services the amount of times that they're supposed to, and for the length of time that they're supposed to be receiving it as well.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to speak up, honestly, because there's times that I've actually, do you want me to do this one? Okay. So, we've covered pretty much a lot of things. What should we read? Let me know.
So, one thing I want to talk about is a lot of people on the spectrum have sensory processing disorder. So sensory processing disorder is that aversion to sounds, to smells, to textures. Even like certain foods can trigger the child. And when they have an autistic meltdown, it's not that they're being quote unquote bad or misbehaving, it's just that they're overwhelmed sensorially, so they have to do something to decompress. So in that moment, it can look like them like screaming or tearing something up or throwing things on the floor and that. So it's important to make sure that you know your child's triggers and that you can kind of hedge against that or prepare them mentally for that, because you wouldn't. It's incredible how much a couple of words can help them process something ahead of time. instead of just dropping it. Like another thing that I learned, you know, I grew up in Washington Heights, I'm Latina, but a lot of the time adults didn't feel like they needed to explain themselves to children. With children on the spectrum, you need to tell them ahead of time. You can't just make changes last minute. You can't just like spring things on them and be like, oh, they're gonna be fine. They're not. So make sure that you're speaking to them beforehand and letting them know the expectations and what's gonna happen that day. As soon as you know.
No, exactly. I can tell you how many times for my son that it's very important that you make them aware and you make them feel like they're included in the conversation. I know for adults it's kind of hard to do that. I grew up in Dominican Harlem, aka 141st and Walkway, and there was a lot of you're seen but not heard. It's like no te meta, don't get into it. And then you're just like, okay, I just saw something. What do you mean? I can't say anything. And now that I'm a mother to a child on the spectrum, and then as an adult growing with ADHD, there's times that I have older generation look at me like, you allow your child to talk to you? I'm like, he's expressing himself. If I don't let him tell me what it is or what it isn't, what am I allowing my child to do? Instead, it'll turn into a meltdown, and then he'll shut down. And then sometimes simple words is easier to kind of help the child, to avoid getting to that level. Because once they get into a meltdown, it's like a bull that sees red. The matador is screwed, everything is loud, everything is noisy, and then you have an elope, and that's even worse.
And also using visual supports, especially if your child is not speaking yet. Using the visual supports can help really bring in that point that you want to live with them.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move on to the presentation. Oh, another thing I wanted to talk about was everybody gets a gift bag with sensory friendly toys. So in there we have poppers, stress balls. We have Etch-a-Sketch,
Yes.
Magnadoodle,
Mini.
Magnadoodle, and we have kinetic sand. So these things are things that people on the spectrum usually use to help calm themselves down. It gives them sensory input, and it can help them relax immensely. So that's also important. The person that was supposed to be presenting for us for Spectrum Warriors is having a health issue. So we're just gonna go on to that presentation and give you kind of the main points of that. So
for Spectrum Warriors, it says, our mission is to respond to the most urgent needs of the autistic community by providing real help, outreach, and hope. Our vision consists of having those affected by ASD reach their full potential and increasing awareness of the very difficult individuals with ASD face. We exist to provide education, training, and a way for families to connect with their communities. The way we do is by bridging the gap and increasing positive communication overall with law enforcement, the Department of Education, social services, and many more. Okay, now I see why my son struggles with Spectrum Warriors basically is care, compassion, assessment, redirect, and exchange. What do they mean by that? Compassion in the situation, because that's always needed, especially when someone that we know who can or cannot be on the spectrum. It's always good to have compassion in the situation because I'll say it in Spanish, but I'll translate it in English. Hoy puede ser yo, mañana puede ser tú. Today it could be me, tomorrow it could be you. So compassion is always appropriate for the situation. Assessment of the situation. Sometimes when we're in crisis mode, it's very difficult for us to be clear-headed and really try to assess the situation that's presented in front of us, because when the endorphin rush and adrenaline kicks in, we all forget. Redirecting of potentially self. So, redirecting of potentially self-harming behaviors. So, there is a propensity sometimes for crisis mode to scratch at themselves, to start like breaking their own nails, maybe pulling out chunks of their hair, maybe scratching their own face, and things like that. So to redirect that person, again, calm tones that you can see, try to be at eye level, try to see how you can connect with the person to avoid the self-harming behavior from getting worse. The exchange of information/communication. So the basics, your name, where do you live, or like, who's your mom, who's your dad, if they know that much, if they're verbal. If they're nonverbal and they're fortunate to have a communication device, or maybe even if they've been taught ASL, a little bit of it, or if you have a pen and paper and just get them to write it down, even whatever it is, the basics, it's always good to do that in terms of a crisis situation. Michelle will explain this much better, but you know. Okay, this is very important. The ABCs of autism. Number 1, assess the situation. Number 2, isolate and filter the problem. And C is comfort the individual. So assess the situation. That's seeing if they're in crisis mode, if maybe they have their hands over their ears, maybe they're screaming wildly, maybe they're like throwing themselves on the floor or roll. It depends on this, because not everybody reacts the same. Especially on the spectrum, it's difficult to assess without getting harmed. Sometimes the person can be so deep in their sensory overload that they can smack the glasses off of you. It happened. My son deviated my septum one time.
One thing I want to say is that when a child is in crisis mode, or a person on the spectrum is in crisis mode, make sure you use as least words as possible.
Yes.
The more you speak at them, the worse they can get, because the thing is, I know when I'm angry or upset, the more you talk to me, the less I'm hearing whatever you have to say. So make sure that you use direct communication, and it's very short and to the point. So let's say you want them to do something,
Yes.
you need to be very short and give them that directive without adding all these extra words like, oh my God, why are you doing that? Why are you, no. They're not going to be able to respond in that moment, so just giving them clear and direct communication is going to be very helpful.
No, exactly. So there's certain words and phrases that you can utilize to try to help them. You can assess the situation externally, but internally is a little different kind of worms. And block out and isolate the problem. This is the hardest step for everybody. Because again, if your child is verbal, you can do it in a few words, the best you can. But if your child's not verbal, that's a good solid 30 minutes to an hour to do that. And here's the emergency communication.
So Spectrum Warriors, I believe once they train the different precincts,
Yes.
they give them these papers, emergency communication boards, and basically when they encounter somebody that is nonverbal on the spectrum, they'll present them the board, and basically it's like it's not picture exchange because nobody's taking anything away, but they're basically pointing to whatever it is that's going on in that moment.
Okay, so you say it and I'll do my Vanna White.
So yeah, so basically, it has a bunch of feelings. So it has sad, mad, I don't understand, I miss someone, it's too noisy, hungry, thirsty, I don't know, not on this board, want something, right? So if something's wrong, they're gonna look at the top part of the board. They'll let them know exactly how they're feeling. some things change, I don't want to, something hurts. And then on the bottom, they'll use this to communicate with them. So basically, we're here to help. Did someone hurt you? Are you lost? Do you need an ambulance? I need help. Call parents or guardians. They'll show them the driver's license ID, so if they have ID on them, they can provide it. They'll let them know, I'll take you home. Sit down in the police car, go to the police station, wait here, and stay with me. So it's important to have all these symbols, especially if your child is nonverbal, because a lot of the time, sometimes the child's nonverbal, they might not speak English or Spanish, but just because they're nonverbal doesn't mean that they do not understand. So it's important to know that even though they don't have expressive language, they do have receptive language and can understand what you're saying to them.
Exactly. So this is also to kind of assist, especially, for the nonverbal members of the community. And this is super important because it's similar to, how do you feel today? Is it, the little faces? This is similar to that, and to be honest with you, this is really good because people do respond to this well. My son sometimes comes home and shows me, and I'm like, okay, how are you feeling? And I did buy him an emoji shirt with that on the thing. He outgrew it, but it's okay. And this is a Spectrum Warriors presentation, and we thank them for giving us this. Thank you so much to Michelle Sanchez-Turner to doing this. And maybe you want to...
I want to give a shout out and then thank you to Alianza Dominicana Cultural Center for lending us this space, for donating the space.
Yes.
And to all the people that presented today, the FDNY, Spectrum Warriors, and the people that unfortunately couldn't make it, but thank you for participating and letting us know that you were interested in this type of presentation. And thank you to all of you for showing up.
Yes, thank you to everybody for showing up en español. Muchas gracias a todos por presente. I want to give a quick shout out to Gianna from Social Skills. Yeah, woo!
Thank you, Gianna.
And of course, the Comadreando podcast.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So, shameless plugs.
Follow me at Comadreando Pod on Instagram and everywhere that you can, all types of social media, and you can catch the show everywhere you consume your podcast. And we also have a YouTube channel. And if you have any questions at all, you can ask them here or send me a Comadre-Gram via email at marcy@comadreandopod.com. I already show is This Is Your Spotlight TV show, and it's on MNN and BronxNet. She also has a YouTube channel as well.
It's the Roman Epics Productions. My TV show, I do drop the episodes monthly. So I interview different people, and it's a 1-hour show. It's every Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. on mnn.org/watch. If you have a television, it's channel 56. If you watch it in the Bronx, it's channel 68, Bronx Arts. And I also just launched a podcast. It's called Your Spotlight After Show. We don't when you have a child on the spectrum, whether they're verbal or nonverbal, like education is a struggle. And sometimes we all have, hopes and ideas and, dreams that it can happen for, our child.
And if anybody has any questions, now's the time.
So as parents, both living in New York City and Philly, right?
Yes.
What changes would you like to see safety-wise to help your young boys in the future?
You first.
I just want more education. I want more people to be aware and to accept them for who they are and not judge them, and be more training in general, just like everyone that deals with them, especially the police and the emergency workers, because that is like my biggest fear as a person of color, my son's interactions with the police, because he's not, one of these poster children for Autism Speaks. So, knowing that he'll still be safe regardless, whether he's in crisis or not. That's really what I would like to see.
Well, for me, education, really of a push to make sure that, that we can set our kiddos outside. I would love to think that I don't have to worry about him if I send him to the bodega, which, by the way, I don't. And you see where I live here. It's not easy. I would like that, to be honest. A little more education, a little more push, just beyond April. Like, it's an all year round issue, month to month, day by day. I would like to do that. So basically more education, more awareness, maybe more discussions like this.
Yeah.
So, any other questions? Anybody?
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I have a question. So my son, he's undergoing speech therapy now.
Yes.
So he's in the early intervention program.
Yes.
So I do notice certain things that you guys have mentioned, like the card tracing, but he does that with like the walls too.
Mm-hmm.
So everywhere he's like walking.
Mm-hmm.
So they haven't diagnosed him with autism. So I wanted to know if I have to like push for more like.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
So basically, is he in a socialization program right now, or?
Well, yeah, he's in nursery, so he's
Okay.
in school the majority of the day, and his speech therapist goes to the sessions.
Okay. So what I would suggest is writing a letter, asking for like a full evaluation, paid by what is it? Not Department of Education. It's
CPSE, the
CPSE.
Council of Preschool
Okay.
Special Education.
I can give you a template for that, but definitely.
I think that they are sending me a packet for that.
Yeah, make sure that the person go in person.
Okay.
For Manhattan, it's at 388 West 125th Street. Make sure you go in person. For the Bronx, it's 1 Fordham Plaza on the 5th floor. So definitely always make a personal appearance. For example, when my son, he did early intervention, I had the speech, occupational, physical, and I had a psychologist and a social worker come through. They first didn't want to put an actual diagnosis on him. I said, no. You came up in my house, you inconvenienced me, you're going to give me what I need for my child. I went to them, I said, listen, okay, they gave me everything fully, and I spoke to, because they send you a therapist, a psychologist or a psychotherapist, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I did was, I was like, listen, por favor, just tell me, is it autism, is it ADHD? He says, oh no, it's more like ADHD. I said, well then, I said, what will get me more services like the speech, the occupational? And he says, well, I can say your son is. I'm like, no, don't say it, write it down. So I can, put this as part of his IEP, which as soon as he turned about 3, he started Head Start. That was crucially important. So really push for them to write it down. Don't take no for an answer, because nowadays I've noticed, like, you're the second mom that I've heard about that. Like, oh, they've done all this testing, but they don't want to say if my child's autistic or not. I said, no, it's clear as day, yes or no. Like, I have to know what services to, go for my child. Like, it just can't be, halfway.
And you're your child's biggest advocate. Don't take no for an answer. And if you need to go for a second opinion, definitely do that.
Oh yeah, of course. For example, there's a couple. You can reach out to the Centers for Autism-Related Disorders, and they do ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, and they're pretty good. You can reach out to them. For occupational therapy, if it's outside like of a school setting, it's called Making Milestones. But please don't take no for an answer. Really push to get everything written down on paper, because if not, you don't want him to miss out on services that could have actually improved.
Yeah.
Like my son, when he started speech therapy, he was stuck on 5 words.
So one thing that I want to reiterate is that The faster you get services, the better it is. You can get them as close to their neurotypical peers as possible.
Yes.
The more services they receive earlier on, which you're already on the right path. So
Yes.
just getting him that diagnosis so that you can access to more things. Because all the diagnosis does is it allows you to knock on more doors and get more resources for your child.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
And also, like, a lot of parents, sometimes they may be a little wary of having a diagnosis because they feel as though, oh, this is gonna follow my child through elementary, middle, and high school. But if you find that your child, like, once they reach high school, that they don't need any additional supports, you can have them reevaluated.
Mhm.
And you can have them put in a general education program where they graduate at 18 versus at 21.
Mhm.
But like I said, it's best to get as much that you can now,
Yeah.
just to get them up to speed.
Yeah, and it's called integrated co-teaching, ICT. I will say you have to be hyper observant because sometimes gen ed could work and sometimes it can't. Because community schools can give you 12 to 1-to-1, and if you don't have the IEP to say I need a 10 to 1-to-1, which is 10 kids, 1 paraprofessional, 1 teacher, or 8 kids, 1 teacher, or maybe 2 paras, then they're just your child will get lost in the shuffle. And I will tell you, as someone with a child on the spectrum, it is very difficult when they get lost in the shuffle because they're not afraid to just be like, okay, you go to District 75. I had to struggle for 3 years to get my son out of District 75 because some of the kids were nonverbal, but because of the inability to speak, and of course, as you saw, he's very social and very vocal. He would come home once a month. I would get like nurses' reports. Somebody scratched him, somebody tripped him, somebody pushed him against the wall, and he has a bruise. And I'm just like, oh my God, is anybody watching the children? So yeah.
I mean, DC-75 isn't all bad. I actually taught there for like 3 years before I went into a community school. And Aiden has been in District 75 since forever. So even with that, it's a specialized district. It's awesome for some people. Just make sure that he's in the right setting. You know, it goes with everything. It doesn't matter what community school or what District 75 school they're in. It's important to ensure that they're getting the right services, that they're in the right setting, and that they're receiving the supports that they need. And with that, I want to thank you again, and we're going to say good night.
Good night. Buenas noches. Gracias.
Aló, comadre.